I don't think the stage of life I'm in right now it's not terribly unique to anything any other man has encountered or person has encountered. It's very unique to me because I've never been here before, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know if it's unique to this time period that we're in. Like, in 2022, there are challenges that we've never seen before for young men. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I hear people say things like that. It's like, oh yeah, boy, men, the things facing young men or the things facing young adults, young parents are just off the charts. I mean, nobody in history's ever done. Well, I don't really believe that. I think each generation probably thought that.
Yeah.
But what is like the prevailing thing that, I don't want to say it eats at me, but I think about this a lot. Am I doing a good job balancing what feels like everything on my plate? And I've heard you say before, and I like this, but I also don't like it at the same time. You've said, you know, man can't carry more than one burden at one time.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds great, but I'm a dad, 2 kids that I care a lot about. I'm a husband. I work for Kerygma Ventures. I work for you. Like, I feel the burden of wanting to serve and support you well. That's the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a 100 things beyond that feel burdensome to me. And I don't mean in a bad way. Like, I'm glad I work for you. I'm glad I'm a husband. I'm glad I'm a dad. But the question, simply put, is probably along the lines of, how do you navigate the work-life balance? And especially for somebody who, like, I have a relationship with God because of Jesus. That's a really high value for me.
Right.
And it's a high value for me to put food on the table for my family and to serve you well and to make there's just a million things that feel like when I lay in bed at night, I'm like, I'm not doing any of this well. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe speaking specific to me, but more broadly than me, how do you alleviate that? Like, it's like a weight that I want to get out from under, and it makes me wonder, like, am I just not seeing life clearly and correctly? Like, what's wrong with me that it feels like such a weight on me to get all that right? I'm asking about 100 questions here, but do you get the heart of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think you're hopeless.
Great. Well, we can just end this now, I guess.
I think you're asking existential questions. You're asking questions that we all ask. I think the one burden thing, Paul said, this one thing I do. That's always been my quest. Mm-hmm. Okay, he knew what the one thing was for him. Mm-hmm. Am I keeping it straight for me, the one thing? Mm-hmm. Or do I have a divided heart? Am I trying to do more than one thing? Mm-hmm. And I think we can do a one thing. We have many roles, though. You have a role as a Christian. You have a role as working at Kerygma. You have a role, husband, father, citizen, whatever. But all those roles have to fit under one calling, one burden, one message, one thing. And so it's not so much a matter of balance like this. It's a balance of rhythm like this.
Okay.
So life, at any one time I might see you and I'd go, man, you sure are spending a lot of time duck hunting.
I wish I could get accused of that.
Or, you're spending too much time at the office. You're here. I look at you at a point of time and it's like, that's out of balance. But as you're doing life, you're doing it in a rhythm. You're doing it in a rhythm of worship and work and recreation and relationships and whatever. The thing is, what is the constant? What's the one thing that motivates you, the one thing that brings joy to you? the one thing that produces life in you. And you have to keep those things straight. And that's the problem is that we live in a culture, a world, where the kingdom, the administration, puts the wrong things at the top.
I agree with that.
When you're called by Christ, when you share his life, he puts the things that are bottom in the world administration on top.
Right. Like what? What's an example of that?
Well, like in the world, the kingdom is, what's on top is power, money, control, respect, reputation, significance, happy, entertainment. And then we start, once we try to get all that done, it's like, okay, then I want to be a generous, nice guy.
Yeah.
I want to go to church. I want to be a good boy. I want to, take care of the family and, give to charities and all that. So I've got the wrong things on the top. And so you come to the kingdom of God, and Jesus' very life is, he lives for the sake of others. First of all, for the sake of the Father. I live for the pleasure of the Father. And then because of that, he's living for the sake of others. So he's thinking of serving and loving and even sacrificing. And then it's where money and success and all that fit is like, can they be tools to help me get that done?
Sure.
So yeah, I'm going to work and I want to make a salary or whatever. I want to have money and I want to have time and skills and whatever so that I can get that done. But if I don't get it inverted, if I don't get the kingdom inverted, I will be working for money and I'll be working for success and I'll be working for power and whatever. And then that causes the conflict in there.
That sounds good, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think the concern for me is, am I doing that well? In theory, all that you just described is, I have no dispute there, right? But I feel conflicted a lot of times. Like, well, yeah, I'm working, to have, be able to provide for my family.
Yeah.
Well, maybe sometimes I'm working because I really like getting paid.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It just feels arduous and like a real challenge to stay, like you said, stay in that rhythmic state where there is balance perpetually.
Well, we talk about let's look at Jesus and let's follow Jesus. So if you want to know what your real heart looks like, the heart down deep inside is under everything else, look at the heart of Jesus. You got his. He gave you his heart. You shared his heart. So some voice comes along in my head and goes, you're doing all this because you like people to like you. You just want to be known, important. It's like, okay, ooh, really? Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not the heart of Jesus.
Yeah.
And he shared his heart with me. So if I find myself doing something and let that get too important, it's like I get upset if somebody doesn't like me or, I get criticized or whatever, and it devastates me. I realize I put too much emphasis there.
Yeah.
So you snap back.
Course correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's helpful. So, touching on one of the things I nuanced in my initial, questions, do you feel like there are things, do you feel like there's a exceptional level of opposition to the growth and development of young men today? as you survey, I mean, you're what, 75, 76 years old?
5.
Sorry, that was close. As you survey...
I'm not sensitive about it.
Well, good, I'm glad. As you survey the 75-year span of your life, and you were a young man, back in whenever that was, do you think now, oh my gosh, I can't imagine being a young man trying to raise a family and be a husband in what's going on today? Like, I've heard that narrative some, like, oh, the things facing young people today, or, Do you feel like that's true, or do people get caught up in that too much?
I do think it's true that things have changed, at least for our culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, things have changed a lot. But it doesn't lead me to say, oh, I can't imagine being a young man. I don't know what I'd do. I'm glad I'm not. No, it's like, hey, this is your assignment. This is our assignment. We're here. We got the grace for it.
Right.
And God put us here to be salt and light. And so, I mean, I'd love to be a young man. It'd be nice to be 35 again. And you say, with all that's going on, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, there are forces that have been focused.
Yeah,
I think on masculinity that is definitely affecting young people. I mean, the one and most obvious is fatherlessness. Mm-hmm. I mean, God designed life for a father to have influence in a young man's life. And when you don't have that and you haven't found a substitute for it, it leaves a gap. Mm-hmm. Now, so what's the solution? Well, the gospel is always the solution, and the way that fits is that through Christ, God becomes my father.
Right.
So I can have a father, and then once I know him as father, then I can pick up that father heart in other men.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean a kid's doomed if he didn't have an earthly father,
Sure.
or he had a bad earthly father. But it does mean the need for the grace of God being expressed in that father-son relationship is absolutely essential. Mm-hmm. It cannot be replaced, and you cannot make up for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that leads me as a believer in the gospel to go, this is a good time.
Sure.
It's a good time. Just we need to get busy doing it.
Yeah, that's good.